Hello there. Boris Johnson has announced that the UK is upping its defence spending by £16.5 billion over the next 4 years. Firstly, please subscribe and like this video to give my channel a boost, and I'm always uploading new content, so please do check back daily, and a big thanks to my Patreon and PayPal supporters. Wow, who'd have thunk it? For the first time I can remember, the UK Armed Forces get financial support instead of having further bone shaved from its carcass. Usually in times like this, when money is tight or non-existent, the mantra is along the lines of, when the going gets tough in the Treasury, the cuts get going in defence. But in welcome news for the UK Ministry of Defence and the Armed Forces Chiefs, the PM has decided to go against that ingrained reaction and actually put more dosh into defence, just what we need as we're coming out of the whole Brexit process. In a statement, Boris Johnson said, "The international situation is more perilous and more intensely competitive than at any time since the Cold War, and Britain must be true to our history and stand alongside our allies. To achieve this, we need to upgrade our capabilities across the board. This is our chance to end the era of retreat, transform our armed forces, bolster our global influence, unite and level up our country, pioneer new technology, and defend our people and way of life." He also said that, "I have decided that the era of cutting our defence budget must end, and it ends now." And he went on to say it would restore the UK to the position of foremost naval power in Europe, protect hundreds of thousands of jobs, and create 40,000 new roles. And although the Labour leader Keir Starmer questioned where the money would be coming from, his party wasn't too displeased, with his Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey saying it was a welcome and long overdue upgrade to Britain's defences after a decade of decline. This new defence settlement will increase UK defence spending from 2% of GDP to 2.2% or thereabouts, or so I'm told. And this won't go unmissed by the White House and Pentagon either, something I'm sure that had a bit of influence over Boris's decision. And the left is very suspicious though, that if the story that's been floated of reducing the foreign aid budget is true, that money saved there will be diverted into defence. And they pressed this question on the PM as he answered questions in the House remotely from his isolation in number 10, but Boris did not, as far as I can see, commit to maintaining the 0.7% of GNI foreign aid budget. Instead, he seemed to hint that UK defence forces stationed around the world can be viewed as a sort of foreign aid. So maybe we're about to see a chop in foreign aid too. And it also seems that the Prime Minister twisted the Chancellor's arm into committing this money to defence in the first place, probably made Rishi Sunak's eyes water. Now, the total package for UK defence is being advertised by the government as £16.5 billion over the next 4 years, but some experts are claiming that when taking previous statements into account, it is only an increase of £7 billion. And many of the assets Boris talked about, like all the bright shiny new frigates, might already be in the pipeline. But whatever the case, this must be the first time that a government has come down on the side of investing in our armed forces instead of using defence cuts to plug gaps elsewhere. Of course, the wagsters are out in force on social media after stories of questionable contracts being procured by friends of friends in government for pandemic PPE. So they're asking if Tory donors with close ties to MPs are going to get first dibs on this money as well, millions for intermediaries with little or nothing to show for it. One other aspect to this that might have passed people by is that of the commitment NATO countries have made to spend 2% of their GDP on defence. And if our GDP has already taken a dive and looks set to recover far more slowly than initially thought, then our defence budget would also shrivel by the same amount. So this extra funding could end up maintaining the current budget at its current level in pounds and pence, not increasing it. But even that would be considered a victory by our defence chiefs in the current financial climate, I would surmise. But there is another trick governments get up to with budgets. They shift budget lines about so it looks like they've increased spending in one area while making savings in another, but they end up paying the same amount of money for the same thing to the same people. I'll give you a ludicrous example. The government could put the police into the Ministry of Education and then claim policing was now free and that they'd vastly increased the education budget. As I said, a ludicrous example as it's so obvious. But by shifting a few responsibilities and people about, these sorts of shenanigans can be hidden. As an example, in 2015, David Cameron considered putting GCHQ into general defence so that on paper, the UK was keeping to its 2% defence budget spending, with the FT reporting, David Cameron has asked ministers to investigate if the intelligence agency's budget can be counted as defence spending, as Downing Street eyes creative accountancy to head off US criticism of military spending. And Oliver Letwin, who was head of Number 10 policy at the time, said, if we need to get to 2% of GDP, there is a question of whether you can increase overall spending by counting funding of the intelligence agencies as defence spending. Message being to always look at the small print. Now, as part of this, the UK will be setting up a national cyber force, which will be a partnership between the armed forces and GCHQ. There will also be another new agency for the use of artificial intelligence, and more will be put into the UK's outer space ambitions. The UK already has its first cyber security regiment, the 13 Signals Regiment, reportedly capable of offensive cyber warfare. The unit had operated during the Second World War and Cold War period, but was disbanded in 1994 under the Options for Change Defence Review. According to Computer Weekly, the 250-strong regiment forms the core of a new Army Cyber Information Security Operations Centre and provides specialist technical support for a hub to test and implement new security capabilities. It brings together several existing cyber security functions from across the Army and will also operate with the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. But many of the more cynical observers out there have pointed out that such assets can just as easily be pointed inwards as outwards, and no one would ever know. So let's hope someone's asking questions on the matter of safeguards as we beef up this whole UK cyber warfare capability. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it by following the link in the descriptions box below and support me on Patreon or PayPal. So what do you think about this defence budget increase? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.